Welcome to today's story. In this magical and exciting adventure, you will follow the journey of Rowan, a young man who faces great challenges, mysterious creatures, and impossible choices. Along the way, he learns the true meaning of courage, love, and sacrifice. This story is perfect for beginners and intermediate learners of English. You can listen, follow, and learn new words and phrases naturally while enjoying a fascinating fantasy tale. So, get comfortable, put on your headphones, and let's enter the world of the Crystal Kingdom, a story of bravery, magic, and hope. Don't forget to listen carefully and try to repeat new words to improve your English every day. In the far northern lands, beyond the silver rivers and the frozen lakes, there was a small village called Frost Hollow. The village was quiet and peaceful, surrounded by pine forests and snow-covered hills. People there lived simple lives. They hunted, farmed, and shared stories by the fire during long winter nights. Among the villagers lived a young man named Kale. He was 19 winters old, tall but thin, with dark brown hair and calm gray eyes. He was not strong like the hunters, nor clever like the craftsmen. Most people said he was ordinary. Even Kale himself believed that. His parents had died when he was a child, taken by a winter sickness. The villagers raised him together, giving him shelter, food, and work. Kale grew up kind, quiet, and gentle, but he often wondered if he would ever become something more. Every morning, he carried firewood to the elders and water to the families. Every evening, he sat by the frozen river, staring at the mountains far away. He didn't know why, but something inside him always whispered, "You are meant for more." One evening, while Kale sat on the riverbank, the oldest man in the village approached him. His name was Torben, white-bearded, wise, and respected by everyone. "You look troubled, Kale," Torben said gently. Kale hesitated. "I do not know who I am. Everyone here belongs, the hunters, the healers, the craftsmen, but I am nothing." Torben's eyes softened. "You are young. The wind has not yet brought your purpose to you." Kale sighed. "What if it never does?" Torben placed a hand on his shoulder. "Purpose does not always come to you. Sometimes you must walk far from home to find it." Kale did not understand. Not yet. That same night, a great storm came to Frost Hollow. A storm unlike anything the village had ever seen. Lightning struck the mountains. The wind howled like 1,000 voices. Snow fell so thick that no one could see beyond an arm's length. Kale stood at his window, frightened yet strangely fascinated. The storm seemed alive, as if it was calling him. Suddenly, a giant flash of blue lightning struck the frozen river with a thunderous crack. The ground trembled. The storm fell silent. The villagers gathered outside, terrified. Kale reached the shore first. A huge fissure had opened in the ice, and inside it, glowing faintly beneath the frozen water, was a metal object shaped like a sphere, marked with symbols of storms, thunder, wind, and swirling clouds. Torben gasped when he saw it. "No, it cannot be." "What is it?" Kale asked. The old man swallowed hard. "A relic of the silent storm. An ancient power that was lost ages ago." Before anyone could stop him, Kale knelt and touched the frozen surface. The moment his hand reached the ice, the sphere shined brighter, reacting to him. The villagers screamed and stumbled backward. Torben whispered, trembling, It has chosen him. The sphere pulsed with a brilliant blue glow, and the storm returned suddenly, fierce and wild. A massive wind knocked everyone back, and the sphere rose through the fractured ice into Kale's arms, as if drawn to him. Electric energy ran through his body. It was painful yet warm, terrifying yet comforting. Lightning danced around him like ribbons of light. When the wind stopped, Kale collapsed unconscious, still holding the sphere. The villagers surrounded him in shock, fear, and confusion. Even Torben didn't know whether this was a blessing or a curse. They carried Kale to his home and kept watch all night. Some villagers whispered fearfully, "He is cursed. He will bring storms to us. This power is dangerous." But Torben defended him fiercely. "Do not judge what you do not understand." Kale awoke by sunrise. The sphere floated quietly beside him, not touching the ground, humming softly like a lullaby. When he reached out, the sphere glowed again and lowered itself gently into his hands. Torben arrived immediately. "Kale," he said, "you must leave the village." Kale's heart dropped. "Leave? Why?" Torben looked at him with sorrow. "Not because we fear you, but because the world needs you. The silent storm has awakened for a reason, and if it has chosen you, then darkness is rising somewhere beyond these lands." Kale didn't know what to say. Torben continued, "If you stay here, the power will grow, and it will destroy Frost Hollow. But if you travel south toward the Golden Plains, you may learn how to control the storm and protect the world from what is coming." Kale said nothing for a long time. He looked at his home, the forest, the mountains, the people who had cared for him, and he felt something break inside his heart. "I don't want to leave," he whispered. Torben nodded slowly. "It is hard to leave the place that raised you, but a storm cannot remain in a single sky." Kale closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they reflected the deepest sadness, but also a spark of courage. "I will go," he said. Torben hugged him tightly. "The world will try to change you. Don't let it turn your heart cold." The villagers gave Kale food, clothes, and a leather cloak for warmth, some with kindness, some with fear. Only a few dared wish him luck. As Kale walked away from the only home he had ever known, the storm sphere floated behind him, glowing like a blue star. He did not know where his path would lead. He did not know who awaited him, friend or enemy. He did not know if he would ever return. But he took his first step into the world beyond Frost Hollow, and with that step, his life changed forever. Aldrich walked through the glowing forest with slow steps. The air was cold, and every sound echoed like a whisper from another world. The map in his hand trembled, not because of the wind, but because his fingers would not stop shaking. He was still afraid of the unknown, afraid of failure, afraid of himself. The light of the crystal forest covered everything in soft blue. Even the shadows looked magical. Aldrich had never seen trees like these. Their trunks looked like glass, and their leaves shined like stars. When he looked up, he could not tell where the branches ended and where the sky began. Everything looked like a dream. As he walked, he remembered the words of the old shopkeeper. "You can save the kingdom if you don't lose yourself along the way." Aldrich did not fully understand what the man meant. Lose himself? How can someone lose themselves? But he would understand soon. After hours of walking, Aldrich reached a wide clearing. At the center of the clearing stood a huge block of crystal. taller than any house he had ever seen. It shined with a bright purple glow, and the air around it felt alive. His heart beat hard in his chest. This must be the place. The crystal gate. The map showed a symbol, a door made of crystal, the entry to the next part of the kingdom. But Aldrich saw no door. It was only a smooth wall of shining purple stone. He walked closer and placed his hand on the crystal. The moment his fingers touched it, the ground shook. The trees around him flickered like fading flame. A deep voice echoed in the air, not from a person, but from the crystal itself. Who seeks entry? Aldrich stepped back quickly. His breath froze in his throat. I seek the Crystal Kingdom, he answered, trying to sound brave. The voice spoke again. Entry requires courage. Do you carry it? Aldrich wanted to say yes. He almost did, but he stopped. He remembered how afraid he still was. So instead, he whispered honestly, I don't know. Silence. Then, suddenly, the crystal glowed brighter. Truth is greater than courage. A huge crack formed in the crystal. A door slowly opened, not because he claimed to be brave, but because he told the truth. Aldrich stepped inside. The world beyond the gate looked nothing like the glowing forest. It was a city, a ruined city. Broken towers, dust-covered statues, empty streets. The sky above was gray like metal. No sound, no wind, no life. Aldrich swallowed hard. This place, something terrible happened here. He did not know how he knew that, but he felt it deep inside. He walked through the silent streets. His footsteps echoed like drums. Pieces of old banners moved weakly in the wind. The broken buildings looked like they were once beautiful, full of magic and music. But now, only memories lived here. When he reached the town square, he saw something strange. A girl, about his age, sitting on the edge of a dry fountain. She wore a long, dark coat. Her eyes were blue like frozen oceans. But she didn't look up when he approached. She stared at the ground, like someone who had lost something precious. Aldrich hesitated, then spoke softly. Are you okay? The girl did not answer at first. Then she whispered, No one is okay here. Aldrich sat beside her slowly. My name is Aldrich, he said. She didn't smile, but she answered, My name is Lyra. A small, sad silence followed. Aldrich looked around the empty square. Lyra, what happened to this place? She closed her eyes for a moment. This city was once the heart of the Crystal Kingdom, the most beautiful place in all the realms. But then, the Shadow King came. He stole the heart of the crystal, the source of magic, hope, and life. When the heart disappeared, everything here died. Aldrich felt a painful weight inside his chest. And now? He asked. Lyra looked at him for the first time. Now one person must bring the heart back. Only one. And that person? Her eyes did not blink. Is you. Aldrich froze. His lips parted, but no sound came out. Me? Why me? I'm nobody. I'm not brave. I'm not strong. Lyra stopped him. Because only those who do not believe they are worthy are able to use the heart. The Shadow King cannot touch it. He is too proud, too hungry for power. Aldrich shook his head. I don't understand. Why should I save a kingdom I have never seen? Lyra answered with a voice full of gentle sadness. Because the kingdom has already seen you. Aldrich's breath stopped. Something deep inside him, something he did not understand, began to wake up. Lyra stood. If you go forward, you will not be able to return. The Shadow King destroys anyone who tries to stop him. Aldrich looked at the ruined city, the broken dreams, the silent streets, the memories of happiness that once existed here. He did not know the kingdom, but he knew pain. He knew what it felt like to lose everything, because he had lost everything too. He stood up slowly. I will go. Lyra nodded softly, but her eyes filled with fear. Then I will walk with you. You should not face the darkness alone. Aldrich felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. The two began their journey north, toward the dark mountains where the Shadow King lived. The air became colder with every step. The road turned rocky. The sky turned black. At night, they stopped to rest near the remains of an old guard tower. They shared a small fire. The silence between them was comfortable, not awkward. After a long time, Lyra asked, Aldrich, what were you before all of this? Before the crystal forest, before the glowing map, before destiny? Aldrich looked into the fire. I worked in a small workshop. I fixed tools, hammers, wheels, broken lanterns. People only came to me when they needed help. But I wasn't important. I didn't matter. My life felt small. He took a deep breath. Sometimes I wished something, anything, would change. Lyra looked down. And when it changed, do you regret it? Aldrich thought carefully. I'm afraid, but I don't regret it. Lyra gave him a small smile, the first smile he had seen from her. You are stronger than you think. He laughed softly. If that is true, I hope I discover it soon. They fell asleep under the quiet sky. But as the fire faded, something dark moved in the shadows, watching them, waiting. Before dawn, Aldrich woke up from a strange dream. He heard a whisper, a voice telling him to follow. He stood up and walked away from the camp, still half asleep. He followed the voice to the trees. It was soft, gentle, comforting. But when he stepped into the forest, the voice changed. You do not belong here. Sharp claws slammed into the ground where he stood a second ago. A monster rose from the darkness, tall, thin, and made of black smoke. Its eyes glowed red. Its mouth opened wide, showing no teeth, only endless darkness. Aldrich fell backward, terrified. The monster moved toward him, and its voice filled the air. The Shadow King knows. You cannot win. Aldrich crawled backward in panic. Then something flashed. Lyra jumped between them, a glowing dagger in her hand. Stay away from him! The creature laughed, a horrible echo. You think you can protect him? It attacked. Lyra pushed Aldrich aside and blocked the strike. The force sent her to the ground. The dagger slid away. The monster raised its claws again, aiming to kill. Aldrich screamed, Stop! He did not have a weapon. He did not know magic. But something inside him exploded with light. A wave of blue energy burst from his hands and threw the creature back. It crashed against a tree and broke into black smoke. Lyra stared at Aldrich, shocked. Aldrich, you used magic. But how? Aldrich's hands shook, glowing faintly. I don't know. But deep inside, he knew. The kingdom truly had chosen him. A cold silence fell over the forest after the creature disappeared. The smell of smoke and shadows stayed in the air, heavy and unpleasant. Aldrich stared at his glowing hands as if they belonged to someone else. The light slowly faded, but the memory didn't. Lyra looked at him with a mix of fear and amazement. Aldrich, people trained for years to learn magic. You used it without trying. Aldrich stood slowly. His legs still trembled. I didn't even know I could. I thought I was normal. I am normal. Lyra shook her head gently. No, not anymore. Aldrich didn't know what to say. He felt like the world was changing faster than he could understand. He did not ask for magic, or heroes, or destiny, but all of it had found him anyway. Lyra walked to him and touched his shoulder. You saved me. Whatever waits for us in the dark mountains, we face it together. Aldrich nodded. He wished he believed in himself as much as she believed in him. The road to the mountains grew darker each day. The sky lost its color. The air tasted like ashes. The trees looked twisted and unhappy, like they were alive and afraid. Even the ground felt sick. Aldrich and Lyra spoke less now, not because they were angry, but because the weight of their mission was heavy. Some days, there was nothing left to say. On the 5th day of travel, they reached a narrow path between two high cliffs. A faint red glow shone from the rocks, not warm like fire, but cold like blood. We're close, Lyra said. How can you tell? Aldrich asked. She pointed ahead. Because the earth cries. Aldrich listened, and then he heard it. A low, distant sound, like thousands of voices weeping softly. It didn't come from people. It came from the land itself. They continued walking. Soon, they reached a high iron gate. It was shaped like wings, broken wings. On the left door was the face of a woman crying. On the right was the face of a man screaming. The gate was a warning, not a welcome. Aldrich swallowed. This is not the Shadow King's castle, right? Lyra shook her head. No, this place existed long before him. She pushed the gate. It opened with a loud, painful sound, like metal dying. Inside stood a huge stone bridge crossing a dark abyss. There was no bottom, no sound, no wind, only emptiness. As they stepped onto the bridge, words appeared glowing on the stones. Fear is the first enemy. Aldrich felt a cold wave pass through him. Lyra, maybe we should. He stopped. Lyra had frozen in place, her eyes wide with sudden terror. The air around her changed, became heavy, thicker than water. Aldrich stepped toward her. Lyra, what's wrong? She didn't answer. Her pupils shrank. Her breath became fast and short. She looked at him. No, she looked through him. Aldrich, don't touch me, she whispered. I'm seeing something. What do you see? She shook her head violently. My worst memory. It feels real. I can't look away. Aldrich didn't know how to help. He couldn't see what she saw. The bridge was attacking her mind. Then, suddenly, Aldrich felt something too. A whisper behind him. A familiar voice. A voice he thought he would never hear again. His mother. "Aldrich, why did you let us die?" He froze. His chest tightened. No. No. That's not real. But the voice continued. "You could have saved us. You were there. You should have done something." He wanted to run, to escape the bridge, but his legs couldn't move. Memories hit him like knives. The fire, the broken house, the screams. The night he lost everything. "I was only a child," he whispered. "I couldn't save anyone." The bridge didn't care. It wanted to break them. Lyra fell to her knees. Aldrich's heart hurt to watch her suffer, but he couldn't move to help. His mother's voice grew louder. "You failed us, Aldrich. You will fail again. You will fail everyone." Tears fell down Aldrich's face. He shouted, "Stop! I know I failed. I know. But I can't change the past." The voice went silent. And then the stones under his feet glowed again. Truth is greater than fear. Aldrich suddenly understood. The bridge didn't attack with illusions. It tested honesty. The way the first crystal gate tested courage. He turned to Lyra, still trapped in her nightmare. He walked to her and held her shoulders. "Lyra, listen to me. You're seeing something that hurts you. Something you blame yourself for." She shook, crying. "I should have protected them, Aldrich. I should have." "No, you're lying to yourself," he said firmly. "You were a child. It wasn't your fault." She closed her eyes tight. "Say it," Aldrich insisted. "Say the truth." Lyra trembled. Then she whispered, "It wasn't my fault." Again, louder. "It wasn't my fault." A wave of light burst from the stones. The dark voices stopped. The air became light again. The illusions disappeared. Lyra breathed hard but finally stood. "You saved me again." Aldrich shook his head. "No. You saved yourself. You just needed someone to remind you." They reached the end of the bridge. More words carved in ancient stone glowed with power. "Only those who face themselves may pass into the kingdom of shadows." Lyra touched the words gently. "We are close to the Shadow King." Aldrich didn't speak. He didn't need to. They continued forward. At last, after hours of walking through lifeless stone fields, they saw it. A castle, huge, black, and cruel. Its towers reached into the dead sky like claws. Shadows moved inside the windows, as if the building itself was alive. Green fire burned in torches that gave no warmth. The Shadow King's fortress. Aldrich exhaled slowly. "So this is where it ends." Lyra corrected him quietly. "Or where it begins." They stepped toward the castle gate, tall as mountains, covered with symbols of pain and fear. Before they could touch it, a loud roar filled the air. A giant creature landed on the ground. A winged beast with a body of stone and eyes of burning gold. A guardian. It looked down at them. "The heart cannot be taken. It must be deserved." Aldrich stepped forward, terrified but determined. "How do we deserve it?" The guardian opened its stone palm. A small hourglass appeared floating in the air. When the last grain of sand falls, one of you must die. Only then may the heart be free. Aldrich stopped breathing. Lyra stared in horror. Die? One of us? The guardian nodded. A life for a life. Hope is never without cost. Without warning, the hourglass turned itself and began to drain. Time started. Aldrich looked at Lyra. Lyra looked at Aldrich. Silence fell. Heavy. Painful. Real. The hourglass floated in the cold air, turning slowly as sand continued to fall. Each grain dropped like the sound of a heartbeat. Steady. Unstoppable. Final. Aldrich stared at it in disbelief. Lyra stared at it in fear. Neither of them moved. The ancient guardian, enormous, winged, and made of living stone, watched them in silence. His golden eyes were patient. He was not threatening them. He was simply waiting. Waiting for a choice. A life for a life. Lyra took a step back. Her voice shook. Aldrich, we can't do this. There must be another way. Aldrich wanted to believe that. He wanted to believe heroes always found a perfect solution. But this was not a story. It was a kingdom broken by darkness. He looked at the hourglass. How long do we have? The guardian answered, until the last grain of sand. When time ends, destiny decides. Aldrich felt ice inside his chest. Lyra whispered, her voice cracking. It wants one of us to die, or the kingdom stays in shadow forever. The thought was too heavy to hold. They stepped away from the guardian to speak alone. Aldrich said quietly, Lyra, listen. You don't have to. But she cut him off. No, I already know what you were thinking. Her eyes were full of pain. You think your life is the one that should end. Aldrich looked away. He didn't deny it. I'm not a warrior. I'm not royalty. I'm not chosen. I was just a boy in a workshop, fixing tools for other people. You belong to this kingdom. You understand magic. The kingdom needs you, not me. Lyra clenched her fists. You're wrong. Aldrich shook his head. I'm not. Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling with emotion. I am not the reason we got this far. You are. You opened the crystal gate. You stopped the nightmare on the bridge. You defeated the shadow creature. The magic chose you, not me. Aldrich wanted to refuse her words, but he couldn't. Not because he believed he was great, but because deep inside, he feared she might be right. Lyra took his hand. I don't want to lose another person I care about. Aldrich froze. Another person? Lyra looked down. Her voice became small and fragile. My brother tried to fight the Shadow King. He never returned. I watched him leave, and I didn't stop him. I believed he was strong enough, and he died. She swallowed. I won't watch someone else sacrifice their life while I do nothing. Aldrich felt something break inside his chest. Lyra, I'm sorry. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she shook her head. Don't be sorry. Just promise me one thing. She placed her hand over his heart. Don't disappear. Aldrich closed his eyes. Her touch felt warm, even in the freezing wind. I promise, he whispered. They returned to the center where the guardian waited. The sand in the hourglass had almost reached the bottom. The guardian asked, "Have you decided?" Aldrich looked at Lyra. Lyra looked at Aldrich. A silent war happened between their eyes. Love mixed with fear, hope mixed with tragedy, courage mixed with despair. Aldrich took one step forward. "I will offer my life." Lyra gasped, "No!" She grabbed his arm, but Aldrich gently freed himself. "I can't let you die. You lost enough already. And my life didn't mean much before this journey. If I die now, at least it will mean something." He turned to the guardian. "Take me." The guardian raised his stone hand. A bright beam of green light shot toward Aldrich, fast and deadly. Lyra screamed, "No!" She jumped in front of Aldrich. The beam hit her instead. The sound of impact shook the ground. A wave of white light exploded, throwing Aldrich backward. When the air cleared, Lyra lay on the ground, still, pale, quiet. Aldrich crawled to her, shaking uncontrollably. "Lyra? Lyra, please, please, wake up." He held her in his arms. Her eyes opened slightly. Her voice was weak, fading. "Aldrich, don't cry." A tear fell on her cheek. "You weren't supposed to. Why did you?" She smiled softly. "Because even if the world ends, I don't want to live in a world without you." Her breathing slowed. "Don't disappear. Remember your promise." Then her eyes closed. Her chest stopped moving. The girl who brought hope back to Aldrich's life was gone. Aldrich screamed, a scream full of loss, rage, and heartbreak. It echoed through the lifeless land, through the stones, through the mountains. The guardian bowed his head. "The life has been given. The debt is paid." A golden light appeared above Lyra's body. Something materialized, small, glowing, beating like a living heart. The heart of the crystal, the most powerful source of light in the kingdom. Aldrich stared at it through tears. "At what cost?" The guardian slowly spoke. "Great light is always born from great loss." The castle gates opened behind them, wide, dark, terrible. The Shadow King was waiting. Aldrich placed Lyra gently on the ground. He brushed her hair softly, a final goodbye without words. His chest hurt so deeply he could barely breathe, but he stood anyway. He took the crystal heart in his hands. It felt warm, alive. He whispered, "I will finish this for you, Lyra." He walked toward the castle. Every step felt like walking with broken bones, but he walked anyway. Inside the castle, everything was silent. There were no guards, no monsters, no traps. The Shadow King didn't need protection. His power was enough. Aldrich crossed a long hallway of mirrors. Dozens of reflections stared at him. Sad, exhausted, angry, heartbroken. One mirror whispered, "You will fail." Aldrich smashed it with his fist. "Not again." He continued. At the end of the hall stood a throne room, huge and dark. A single figure sat on the throne, wrapped in shadows thicker than night. The Shadow King. His voice sounded like chains dragging across stone. So you have come again. Aldrich frowned. Again? The Shadow King laughed, a hollow, cruel sound. This is not the first time you stand before me. Aldrich froze. What are you talking about? The Shadow King leaned forward. His eyes glowed like black fire. Don't you remember, little hero? You have been chosen before. You failed before. You died before. Aldrich couldn't breathe. No, that's not true. Your soul is tied to this kingdom. Every time it falls, you are reborn to save it. And every time, you fail. Aldrich dropped the crystal heart in shock, but caught it before it hit the ground. The Shadow King smiled. So come, fail again. Aldrich gripped the crystal heart. Something changed inside him. He wasn't just fighting for the kingdom. He wasn't fighting for destiny. He was fighting for Lyra. He lifted the heart high, and the throne room exploded with light. The final battle had begun. Light exploded from the crystal heart when Aldrich lifted it. It was not soft light like moonlight. It was sharp, powerful, and alive, like a storm made of hope. The Shadow King rose from his throne. His cloak of darkness snapped behind him like wings. There was no fear in his face, only a twisted smile. So the cycle begins again. Aldrich gritted his teeth. I don't care about your cycle. I don't care about destiny. I came here to end this. For Lyra. The Shadow King spread his arms. Lyra? That is what drives you now? How small. How human. Aldrich raised the heart higher. Its brightness struck the walls, changing the shadows into dust. The Shadow King snarled. Very well. Let your love be your weakness. Without warning, a vortex of darkness burst from his hands. It roared through the room like a hurricane. Aldrich blocked it with the crystal heart. Barely. His arms burned. His body trembled. The Shadow King stepped closer. You still don't understand what you hold. Aldrich shouted. It's the heart of light. No, the Shadow King roared. It is your heart. Aldrich's mind froze. What? The Shadow King continued. The crystal. Heart is not a weapon. It is the forgotten part of you. Every time you are reborn, it breaks away. Without it, you are empty and weak. Aldrich's breath trembled. And Lyra died for my heart? The Shadow King laughed, terrible and cold. Of course. Light must be given by the living. Love is always the sacrifice that restores you. Aldrich shook his head violently. No, that can't be true. Lyra didn't die for me. She died for the kingdom. The Shadow King raised a hand. The air twisted, and a perfect illusion formed next to Aldrich. Lyra, alive, breathing, standing, her eyes full of light. She whispered with a smile, I died because I love you, Aldrich. Aldrich reached toward her instinctively, but stopped. Her hand passed through his fingers like smoke. She was not real. The Shadow King's voice echoed. If you want her back, give up the heart and return to the cycle. You will be reborn again. You will live with her again. You will be happy again. Aldrich couldn't speak. The Shadow King stepped closer. Just drop the heart, and you can see her smile again. Aldrich stared at the illusion of Lyra. She looked so real. Her hair, her eyes, the way she tilted her head when she was shy, the gentle curve of her mouth when she laughed. His voice cracked. I want to believe you. With everything in me, I want to believe you. The Shadow King smiled, believing he had won. Aldrich continued, his voice shaking. But love isn't a cage. Love doesn't erase pain. Real love doesn't ask the world to suffer so one person can be happy. The Shadow King's smile broke. Aldrich stepped forward. Lyra didn't save me to make me weak. She saved me because she believed I could end this. The Shadow King roared. Fool! Pain will destroy you. Aldrich shouted back. No! Pain is why I fight. He lifted the crystal heart to his chest and pressed it into the center of his body. A beam of burning white light tore through the room. The heart sank into him, merging with him, becoming him. The Shadow King screamed, No! You were never supposed to remember! Aldrich fell to his knees, overwhelmed. Images flooded his mind. Him as a king. Him as a warrior. Him as a child. Him dying. Reborn. Dying. Reborn. Again and again, through centuries. He saw something else. Something terrible. Every time he fought the Shadow King, someone he loved died for him. He whispered through tears, How many people have I lost? How many times have I made others pay for my destiny? A final memory appeared, the first one. Long ago, before the kingdom fell, the Shadow King was not a monster. He was Aldrich's brother. Not by blood, but by bond deeper than blood. They stood together once, as guardians of the Crystal Kingdom. Two protectors, two heroes. Until jealousy poisoned one heart. Until love broke the other. Aldrich collapsed, shaking. He remembered everything. Every life, every loss, every death. He remembered seeing his friend fall into darkness and being unable to save him. The Shadow King shouted, You made me what I am. You turned your back on me, and now you will do it again. Aldrich rose slowly, weak, broken, but whole for the first time. No, not again. He walked toward the Shadow King, not with anger, but with sorrow. The Shadow King attacked, waves of darkness like storms. Aldrich walked through them, untouched. Light defended him automatically. It doesn't have to end with death, Aldrich said. The Shadow King screamed in rage and agony. There is no light left in me! Aldrich stood before him and placed a hand on his chest. There is. It's small. It's buried. But it's still there, and I won't abandon it. The Shadow King shook violently, trying to pull away, but Aldrich held him. Light poured from Aldrich's hand into the Shadow King's heart, not to destroy, but to remember. Suddenly, the Shadow King collapsed to his knees. The darkness around him cracked like glass. He whispered, not as a king, but as the man he once was. Aldrich, I am so tired. Aldrich held him, supporting his weight. I know. I'm tired too. The darkness shattered completely. The Shadow King, now just a man, fell unconscious. The throne room filled with light so bright the castle began to crumble. Aldrich looked around. If I stay, I die with the castle. He looked down at the man who had once been his brother in all but blood. I won't leave you again. He lifted him and carried him through collapsing halls, through breaking stone, through fire and falling towers. Behind them, the throne room collapsed forever. Outside, the land began to change. The black clouds dissolved. The dead grass turned green. The air became warm. The sun rose. The first sunrise in the kingdom in centuries. Aldrich stood in the light, gasping for breath. Then he slowly lowered the Shadow King to the ground. The man opened his eyes. No darkness left. I don't know how to live anymore. Aldrich smiled weakly. Then we learned together. The man looked at him with shame. So many died because of me. Aldrich nodded. And because of me. We both have to live with that. Silence. Not painful silence. Honest silence. Then the man whispered, "What will the world call you now?" Aldrich closed his eyes. Not a hero. Not a king. Just Aldrich. The man nodded. And what am I? Aldrich squeezed his shoulder gently. Someone with another chance. The man wiped tears he didn't expect. Thank you. Aldrich breathed deeply. It felt like his first breath in ages. But the victory was not complete. Because the person who deserved this sunrise the most was not here to see it. Aldrich turned toward the stone fields, where Lyra's body rested. He walked silently. Every step hurt. He sat beside her and held her hand. Cold now, but still hers. He whispered, "The kingdom is safe, Lyra. You were right. I finished it." A tear fell on their joined hands. But I miss you. The wind blew softly, warm, carrying sunlight across the ground. Aldrich closed his eyes. For the first time in his many lifetimes, he cried without shame. The celebration continued late into the night, but deep inside, Rowan could not rest. The festival fire warmed his skin. Music filled the air. Children laughed, and banners of victory waved under the moonlight. Yet his heart felt heavy. The war against the Shadow Clan was not truly over. He knew it. And somewhere in the darkness, the enemy also knew it. Just after midnight, Rowan walked alone to the edge of the forest. The lake reflected the moon like a mirror, and the wind was cold. He removed a small stone from his pocket, the glowing crystal given to him by the Oracle of Dawn. It pulsed with soft blue light. He whispered to himself, "Why does this stone still glow if the danger is past?" If their enemies were defeated, the crystal should have gone dark. But instead, it shone brighter than ever before. As Rowan stared into its glow, a sudden image flashed inside his mind. A mountain torn open by lightning, a gate of fire, and a huge, dark figure rising beyond it, too large and too terrible to describe. He gasped and dropped the crystal. A voice echoed inside his head. It was not spoken, it was simply felt. The true enemy has not yet awakened. Rowan staggered backward and placed a hand over his heart to calm himself. So the war they had fought was only a small storm before the hurricane. He returned to the festival quickly. The others celebrated, unaware of the storm coming. Rowan searched for his companions, Eldrick, Mira, Kale, and Talia. and gathered them silently by the old stone fountain. Kale laughed, believing Rowan was joking. "You want to discuss danger on a night like this? Rowan, we won! We earned this!" But Rowan shook his head. "No, the crystal glows brighter than ever. I saw something, a giant from the mountains, waking." Mira suddenly grew pale. The Mountain of Fire. That place wasn't included in any of the maps or strategies during the war. Eldrick spoke quietly. "Because it was sealed centuries ago. No army can go there. No man can live among the fire." Rowan stared into the flames of the festival fire. "We may have won the battle, but we haven't won the war." Talia stepped forward with fear and courage mixed in her voice. "Are you saying we must travel to the Mountain of Fire?" Rowan nodded. "If we don't, everyone we love may burn." The joyful music behind them suddenly sounded far away. At sunrise, the group left the capital secretly. The king believed the threat was gone and would never allow another dangerous mission. So Rowan and his companions walked silently through the gates, blending in with merchants and travelers. Mira carried her spellbook and a small dagger. Kael carried food and medical supplies. Talia carried maps and tools. Eldrick carried ancient scrolls of history. Rowan carried the crystal. Their destination was unknown territory, land outside every kingdom's borders. On the 5th day, they reached the Ashlands, a region where the ground was black and dead trees stood like skeletons. Even the wind sounded weak. "Nothing can live here," Kael muttered. But he was wrong. A creature moved slowly from behind a stone. A wolf, but not a living one. It was made of ash and smoke, with eyes that burned like embers. It growled with silent rage. More wolves appeared behind it. Rowan raised the crystal, and its blue light exploded outward. The ash wolves froze, howled silently, then turned into dust and disappeared. Talia gasped. "The crystal protects us." Rowan answered calmly, though his hand shook. "No, it only scares away the lesser creatures. The greater one, the one I saw, will not be stopped by light." They walked deeper into the dead land. The air became hotter. The sky turned red. On the 10th day, they reached the foot of the Mountain of Fire. The earth shook with every roar from inside the volcano. Lava fell like rivers. The heat was so strong they wrapped their faces to breathe. And then they saw it. A massive gate of ancient black stone, wrapped in burning chains, sealed shut by symbols none of them understood. Eldrick whispered in disbelief. "This wasn't built by men. This is the gate of the first war, the War of the Giants." Rowan approached the gate, and the crystal shot out a beam of blue light. The chains rattled. Not by accident, as if something inside had felt Rowan's presence. Mira screamed. "We shouldn't be here. If we open the gate, the giant will destroy the world." Rowan turned to her, eyes filled with hard truth. "If we don't open the gate, it will break open by itself. Soon. And when it does, no one will be ready." The earth shook again, and a huge burnt hand slammed against the other side of the gate. The giant was waking. Kael panicked. "What do we do?" Rowan held the crystal tightly, and it began to change. Instead of blue, it glowed white, then gold, then pure, blinding light. Rowan shouted above the thunder of the mountain. "The gate can't be destroyed from the outside. Someone must enter and end the giant from within." His companions froze. Talia cried, "No, you won't survive!" But Rowan already knew the truth. He turned to his friends, the ones who had fought beside him, who had laughed and suffered with him. "Mira, you're the wisest. Lead the others home. Tell the king the true threat has passed, if I succeed." He placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. "You've always been brave. Don't blame yourself for anything that happens." He gripped Eldric's arm. "You taught me everything I didn't know, everything a warrior truly needs." He smiled sadly at Talia, who loved him more deeply than she ever admitted. "You gave me hope when I had none." Tears fell, but Rowan did not hesitate. He raised the glowing crystal, and the gate burst open in a storm of fire and wind. The group was thrown backwards, but Rowan walked forward, protected by the golden light. The giant, taller than houses, skin made of burning stone, roared in fury. Rowan closed his eyes and whispered, "For the world, for the people I love." He charged toward the Titan, and the mountain exploded with light. Then everything went silent. When Rowan's companions awoke, the gate was gone. The mountain was still. The red sky had turned blue. There was no fire, no roar, no monster. Just peace. On the ground where Rowan had stood, the crystal remained, no longer glowing, but warm. Talia picked it up and held it to her heart. Kale whispered, "He saved us all." Mira closed her eyes, unable to speak. Eldric placed a hand on Rowan's last footprint in the ash. He did what heroes do. He paid the price no one else could. They walked back home, not as warriors, but as survivors of a story no one would ever fully believe. They returned not with triumph, but with memory. Months later, the capital built a monument in Rowan's honor. A statue of the young warrior stood in the center of the square, holding a shining crystal toward the sky. Children would one day ask their parents, "Who was he?" And the parents would answer, "He was the one who walked into fire so the world could stay in the light." And every night, when the wind blew softly through the streets of the kingdom, it almost sounded like a whisper. Courage is not living without fear. Courage is moving forward while fear walks beside you. The kingdom did not forget Rowan, but time, as always, continued to move forward. A full year had passed since the day Rowan entered the Mountain of Fire. The land was peaceful. Crops grew, markets flourished, and laughter returned to the capital. Yet beneath the peace, a quiet wound remained. A wound shared by everyone who had loved Rowan. Mira became the king's chief advisor. Her wisdom guided the kingdom into new prosperity. Kale trained young recruits in the art of battlefield medicine. Eldric dedicated himself to recording the real history of the war in great books, so future generations would understand the price of peace. And Talia? She disappeared from the capital the week the monument was built. No one knew where she went. She left nothing behind except a small, folded letter on Mira's desk. "I cannot live here while the world believes Rowan is gone forever. I will search for him, not as a warrior, but as someone who refuses to forget. If there is even one chance, just one, I must follow it." No one tried to stop her. Talia's journey began in the eastern forests, where she met wanderers and mystics. She crossed snowy plains in the north, visited abandoned temples, spoke to spirits who lived between worlds. At times she felt foolish, at times she felt insane, searching for a man whom everyone else believed dead. But her heart would not let her stop. Each night she slept under the stars and cried silently where no one could see. She remembered Rowan's smile, his fear, his courage, and every memory reminded her why she walked. One night, she found a small cabin deep in the forest of silver pines. A blind old woman opened the door and smiled before Talia said a word. "You seek someone who walked into fire," the old woman whispered. Talia froze. You know about Rowan?" "Everyone who listens can hear the echo of great destinies," the woman answered. "But you are not simply looking for a hero. You are looking for your person." Talia's hands trembled. "Is he alive?" The old woman didn't answer. She simply pointed to a wooden table where a single map was laid out. "Follow the path where the world becomes silent. There you will find what the living cannot see." When Talia looked up again, the old woman was gone, the cabin completely empty, dust on the floor, as if no one had lived there in years. Still, the map remained. Meanwhile, far away, beyond the lands of men, Rowan opened his eyes. He lay on cold black stone, his body weak and heavy. The air around him burned like fire, yet he felt no pain. The sky above was red, not the red of sunset, but the red of an endless burning horizon. He stood slowly. This was not death, and it was not life. He looked around and realized he stood in a world of eternal fire. But the flames weren't real flames. They didn't consume. They didn't destroy. They were only images, memories of a world that once burned. A giant shadow moved behind the smoke. Rowan reached for a weapon, but found nothing. And yet, the silhouette didn't attack. It stopped. A deep voice echoed across the burning plain. "You did not destroy me. You brought yourself here, to the prison of Titans. This place holds not only me, but now also you." A figure stepped forward, the fire giant, but changed. No longer roaring with rage, no longer a monster, but a being of ashes, heavy with sorrow. "We are trapped here together," the giant said. "Only those who cross the gate remain here. You are not my enemy. You are my successor." Rowan felt stunned and angry. "Successor? I came here to stop you, not replace you." The giant turned and pointed to the horizon, where millions of spirits of fire moved. Warriors, monsters, forgotten kings. This realm exists to contain the souls of ancient power. Someone must rule it, or it will break open and destroy the world of men. For centuries I held it closed. Now I am weak, and you are strong." Rowan shook his head violently. "No, my friends, the people I love, Talia, I must return to them." The giant sat heavily on a stone throne. "To return, you must abandon your power, the part of you that makes you a warrior. If you return, you will be ordinary, weak, and perhaps the world will need a champion again, and you will no longer be able to save it." Rowan hesitated, tears filling his eyes. He could return to the world, but not as a hero. Or he could remain trapped forever, but protect everyone he loved. He didn't answer. Back in the living world, Talia followed the map for months. She crossed a desert of white sand where nothing cast a shadow. She climbed cliffs that sliced the sky. She entered a canyon so quiet she could hear her heartbeat. Finally, she reached a stone arch covered in glowing runes matching the symbol on the map. She whispered, "Rowan, if you're in there, please let me find you." The arch lit up like sunrise, and she stepped through. Rowan sat at the throne beside the giant, thinking, remembering, hurting. Then, suddenly, the sky flashed gold. Someone had crossed the barrier into the prison of Titans. Rowan felt the presence, warm, familiar, full of life. He stood. He knew who it was before he saw her. Talia ran through the flames without fear, and Rowan ran to her. They collided in an embrace so desperate and full of relief that the entire burning world flickered. Talia cried into his chest. Rowan held her like someone who had been drowning for too long. "You came for me," he whispered. "I will always come for you." The fire giant watched silently, then spoke. "Now your choice is different, Rowan. If she remains here, her life will burn away, and she will become ash. If you return with her, you will become ordinary, a life without glory, without protection, without power." Talia held Rowan's face in her shaking hands. "I don't need you to be a legend. I just need you to live." Rowan closed his eyes and made the decision instantly. He turned to the giant. "I choose life. I choose the world. I choose the people I love." The prison of Titans exploded with white light. The throne cracked. The fires died. The sky shattered like glass. Rowan held Talia tightly as the world collapsed around them. And then, silence. They woke on a peaceful hill just outside the capital. The sun was rising. Birds were singing. Rowan touched his chest. No armor, no magic, no glow. He was simply a man again. Talia smiled softly. "Welcome home." For the first time in a long time, Rowan felt free. When they entered the kingdom, people shouted Rowan's name with shock and joy. The king embraced him. Mira wept openly. Kale ran to him laughing. Eldrick dropped his scrolls and hugged him with shaking hands. And Rowan smiled, not as a hero returning from war, but as a man who finally understood what mattered. That night he stood before the monument built in his honor. His own statue looked down at him, a reminder of the life he had left behind. He placed his hand on the stone and whispered, "I don't need to be remembered as a legend. I need to be here, for the people who remember me." The wind blew softly, and in the gentle breeze came a truth stronger than any sword. The greatest victory is not saving the world, but choosing to live in it. Peace returned to the kingdom once again, not the fragile peace that comes after war, but a deep and living peace that grows inside the hearts of people. Yet life after a great battle is never the same. War changes history, but love changes people. For Rowan, the challenge was no longer fighting monsters or saving the world. The challenge was learning how to live when everything was quiet. At first, he struggled. His body remembered the weight of weapons, the smell of smoke, the sound of screaming. He would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night thinking he was still inside the mountain of fire. But each time, Talia would be there, her hand on his shoulder, her voice soft and steady. "You're home. You're safe. You're with me." And slowly his nightmares faded. Rowan decided not to return to the army. He refused the title of general, refused to sit in the king's council, refused every reward offered to him. He wanted a simple life. At the edge of the capital, he built a small wooden house surrounded by wildflowers. He planted olive trees with his own hands. He woke up each morning not to march, but to breathe. Talia moved in with him soon after. She brought maps and books, but she no longer traveled the world. She had already completed her greatest journey. They spent their days talking, laughing, and discovering how to live, not as warriors, not as survivors, but as people finally free. Rowan learned how to bake bread. Talia learned how to grow tomatoes. They built their life together, one quiet day at a time. But life, even when peaceful, always moves forward. One afternoon, a knock sounded on their door. When Rowan answered, he found a young boy, skinny, nervous, maybe 13 years old, holding a wooden practice sword. "Are you Rowan? The Rowan who fought in the Great War?" the boy asked. Rowan tensed. He expected requests for stories or for training future soldiers. He opened his mouth to decline, but the boy continued first. "I don't want to be a hero," the boy said quickly. "I just want to stop being afraid." Those simple words struck Rowan like a lightning bolt. He invited the boy inside and cooked him a meal. The boy explained that his name was Orion. He lived in a village where he was bullied and called weak. He didn't want to win battles. He didn't want to fight wars. He just wanted confidence. He wanted to feel like he mattered. "People think only strong warriors have courage," Rowan told him quietly. "But real courage is when you try, even when you're terrified." From that day, Rowan began teaching Orion, not how to fight, but how to stand tall, how to breathe calmly, how to trust himself. Orion returned every week. Then other children joined. Then teenagers. Then even adults. Soon, Rowan had a field full of students learning from him. Not how to be warriors, but how to be brave in everyday life. Rowan never raised a real sword again. But every day, he created something far more powerful: confidence in others. Meanwhile, Mira, Kale, and Eldrick visited often. They didn't need Rowan as a soldier. They needed him as a friend. Kale brought food and laughed loudly as always. Mira arrived with news and advice disguised as jokes. Eldrick came with scrolls, but rarely opened them. He preferred talking to Rowan near the olive trees. One evening, the four of them sat outside while the sun painted the sky in pink. Kale joked about building a statue of himself next to Rowan's. Talia laughed. "A statue of you sitting on a barrel of beer, maybe." Kale pretended to be offended. "I'll have you know I'm a very sophisticated person." Everyone laughed. And for the first time in years, laughter didn't carry pain underneath. But peace does not mean the world becomes perfect. Years passed, and the kingdom began to change. Children grew. New markets opened. Foreign travelers entered the capital more frequently. Different cultures blended, and new inventions appeared. Some older citizens complained about change. Some younger citizens wanted faster progress. The king grew tired, and the council grew divided. Rumors of political fights reached Rowan, but he stayed away from anything related to power. He had chosen his life, and he would not return to the Golden Walls. However, destiny has a habit of knocking at the doors of people who try to escape it. One morning, Rowan received a letter stamped with the royal seal. He hesitated before opening it, and when he finally did, the words shocked him. "The king is dying. He requests your presence, not as a soldier, but as a friend. Come when you are ready." Rowan stared at the letter for a long time. Talia walked up behind him and gently took his hand. "You should go," she whispered. He nodded. The palace felt different as Rowan entered it, like a memory of a life he once lived but no longer belonged to. The guards bowed deeply in respect. though he wore simple clothes and carried no weapon. In the king's chamber, the old ruler lay weak on his bed. He smiled faintly when he saw Rowan. "You still walk like a warrior," the king whispered. "And you still speak like a father," Rowan replied. They talked for hours, not about battles or strategies, but about life, about fear, about responsibility, about regret. The king confessed something that he had never told anyone. "I was never afraid of losing wars," he said. "I was afraid of losing my people." Rowan held his hand. "You didn't lose them. You led them through darkness. And because of you, there is a future." Tears formed in the corners of the king's eyes. "When the time comes," he said quietly, "promise me something." "Anything," Rowan answered. "Promise me that the future of this kingdom will be guided by hearts, not swords." Rowan nodded. "I promise." The king smiled, a tired smile full of peace, and closed his eyes for the last time. The funeral lasted 3 days. Thousands attended. The city drowned in white flowers. Bells rang across every town in the kingdom. After the ceremony, the council gathered to choose the next ruler. Many expected Rowan to take the throne, but he refused before they could even ask. "The throne belongs to someone wiser than I am," he said. "Someone who understands peace better than battle." He placed his hand on Mira's shoulder and smiled. "She is the one." The council gasped, but the people cheered. They trusted Mira. They loved Mira. And she accepted the duty with tears and strength. Under her rule, the kingdom entered an era called later by historians the Age of Gentle Light. Rowan returned to his peaceful life, not because he was running from responsibility, but because he had fulfilled all responsibilities already. Life grew even warmer. Orion became a confident young man, and later a teacher like his mentor. Children who once cried in fear now laughed on Rowan's training field. And one evening, under a quiet sunset, Rowan and Talia stood in front of their home, where the wildflowers had grown high and the olive trees gave deep shade. Talia leaned her head on Rowan's shoulder. "Do you ever miss the life you used to live?" Rowan kissed her forehead. "No. That life taught me how to survive. But this life taught me how to be alive." They watched the sky slowly turn gold, then purple, then deep blue. And there, in the silence of the world they had fought so hard to protect, Rowan finally understood. Heroes are not the people who saved the world once. Heroes are the people who choose love again and again, every single day.